Is Rudy Gobert a legitimate NBA MVP candidate? Well, there's a lot of people talking about it. And what I would tell you is we're 2 weeks into the season, so I don't know that there is such a thing as a legitimate NBA MVP candidate. But if there was one on this team, it would not be Rudy Gobert because I think now, and this is where the discussion happens, Jake.
Right.
What's your definition of MVP? To me, it's who's the most valuable player to their team. That very clearly, in my opinion, is one of two people, and they're not as tall as Rudy Gobert. It's Donovan Mitchell or it's Mike Conley. We've seen it time and again. What happened in Chicago on Saturday night? Well, the Bulls beat the Jazz because Mike Conley had on awesome yarn shoes and not a basketball uniform, and the Jazz lost. To me, if you take Rudy Gobert out of this lineup, Jake, you can still win games.
Yeah, and I think the MVP, conversation is a complicated one. I look back over the last couple of seasons, and there were a lot of people upset that LeBron didn't win an MVP and James Harden or Giannis did. And so I think when we look at the MVP for the entire league, I also think it's not just numbers, and the reason Rudy's in this discussion already is because of his numbers. His numbers say that, he's been one of the best players in the league up until this point. And like you were saying, it is early, but the numbers do support that. And I think that the trouble is number one is a big. I think it is tough to win an MVP. I mean, when Jokic won the MVP, that was the first, traditional, like more traditional style big to win it in a long time. Some people will tell you Giannis is a big. I don't look at Giannis as like a 5 or anything. I look at Giannis as just a gifted athlete at his size who plays basically every position on the floor. So to me, I don't really count that as a big. But when I look at Rudy and his chances of winning an MVP in the league, I don't like his chances just simply because I think, number one, he's a big. But then number two, the popularity contest that surrounds the MVP does not work in his favor. And then thirdly, to what you were saying, I think we could all agree that Rudy's not even the best player on his team. And Don, has had a slow start. But Donovan Mitchell is the one who is consistently in the conversation of, hey, this guy's going to compete for an MVP this next season. He's going to be an all-star every year. He's going to be that guy. So to me, is Rudy Gobert a legitimate NBA MVP candidate? I don't think necessarily he is, but I also don't think that's an indictment on Rudy. I think Rudy has earned the praise. I think Rudy has done a hell of a job to this point in supporting this team. And I think the whole thing about, hey, if you took him off the floor, let's say Rudy got hurt and he wasn't playing, would this Jazz team still be in the same position? I don't know about that because I look at this team, and the Bulls game is a good example. I look at this team against the Bulls, and I say, there was a lot of penetration in the paint.
Whoa, this is a family show.
I know it's a family show, but there was a lot of penetration, and without the rim protection that Rudy provides, that's not going to go well for the Jazz. And so, think about it. With him in there, at least you have elite rim protection. With him not in there, you can't say that. I mean, Hassan's been good, but he's definitely not the defender that Rudy is. So I don't know. I think that is a tough thing to talk about.
Yeah, I think that Rudy Gobert is a fabulous player. I mean, obviously, defensively, his contribution is, beyond reproach. I mean, he's a fantastic defensive player, but this is always going to be an offense-first team. I don't think there's any doubt. Obviously, with the roster construction the way it is, if you look at the way this team wins and loses games, it's the 3-ball. When the ball's going in, Rudy's going to have less of an impact, and they're going to score a heck of a lot more points. When the 3-ball's not going in, Rudy's going to have 16 to 20 points and usually 20 rebounds. And the likelihood of him having 5 or more offensive rebounds goes up significantly, which is why I think Rudy Gobert is off to such a great start this season. But this Utah Jazz team is going to begin to shoot the 3-ball much better. I have no doubts about that. And I say that because I think we've proven that this team, whether that be Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Bojan Bogdanovic, you name the guy, I don't think there's any question that this Utah Jazz team is an elite 3-point shooting team. It's only a matter of time. Mm-hmm. If Jordan Clarkson on his own just begins to shoot better, the point total at the end of the night goes up exponentially. So Rudy's impact offensively will be lessened. And I think we all understand the MVP award in the NBA is certainly an offensive award. I think that is the beginning and the end of the discussion. I think this is the same conversation we have, what I feel like all the time about Rudy Gobert, is what is his highest, best contribution to this team? And Jake, I'm telling you, it's defensive, and I think that makes it awfully difficult for Rudy to win the MVP award.
Yeah, and I think if you look at if you look at Jokic and winning the MVP last season, I think it's an interesting comparison. Jokic is a guy for Denver who is a dominant offensive player. I mean, depending on who they're playing and in the situation in the game, he'll take it himself and get to the rack, or a lot of times we see all the time where he'll just stand at the top of the key and facilitate. And I really think that is what allows him to win the MVP, because Rudy is a better defender than Nikola Jokic. There's no doubt about that. I mean, hell, Rudy is a three-time Defensive Player of the Year recipient, so you could make the case that he's the best defender in the league. I mean, some people do that, but the point is that the MVP is just tough because again, it doesn't just come down to. It's not like in baseball or it's not like the scoring championship where it's just simply, hey, who scored the most points? You won a scoring championship. It's not like that. There's so much more to it. I feel like it is numbers, but I also feel like it is a popularity vote. Like, when you get down to the end of the year and you're looking at the pool of guys who are candidates for this thing, when is the last time you saw a real, like, traditional, methodical plotting five even be in that conversation? Because I got news for you. Jokic is not that guy either. Jokic is not a traditional five. So that's why I say, no, he is not a legit NBA MVP candidate. Yes, he is a hell of a player. Yes, he very much was deserving of that Western Conference award that he got for, what was it, Player of the Week, I believe it was. So he definitely deserved that. I just think that it's going to be tough to be an MVP in the league when you're not even the best player on your team. That's what I think is going to be tough to get over if you're Rudy.
Well, and I think, so let's have the discussion. Who do you think is the most valuable Jazz man? I think pretty clearly it's Donovan Mitchell or Mike Conley. And I think there's actually a discussion in that. And I think that, if I could go back and do it all over again, no, I still would not re-sign Mike Conley. I want 5 years of prosperity, not 1 year chasing a ring. But now that Mike is here, I think it's awfully difficult to look past how important he is, A, as a three-point shooter, but B, as an all-around, general on the floor for the Jazz. He's never going to be the most outspoken or out front guy, but I don't think there's any question that Mike Conley steers the ship for this Utah Jazz team.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people joking on Twitter about how the Mike Conley Jazz are 5-0, right? Like in the games that he's played, they're 5-0, and I think that it's a great point. But I also think, on the other side of the coin, I'm not going to sit here and reward a guy for his shortcomings, meaning that I don't think that we should say that Mike Conley is in the conversation as one of the most important guys on this team, because on the nights he actually does play, they're way better. Like, I think Donovan Mitchell is head and shoulders the best, most important, highest value player on this team because he plays every night unless he's hurt. And there's just no doubt about that. And by the way, he's getting better year over year. Like the guy, like now, like what I'm impressed with Don so far is now we're at a point where if you leave him open off the pick and roll,
right,
he's going to knock that down damn near every time. I mean, if it is a wide open, just kind of step right into the three, it's going in. And I think that's a big difference over last year. That's the difference. That was the difference between Don and guys like Dame or Steph or that. Like, those guys are able to just knock it down at will. And I feel like Don's starting to stride into that territory this year.
Yeah, I think so. But you accomplished an awful lot without Donovan Mitchell last year. I don't. And again, I want to make this really clear. I'm not telling you that you're better off without Donovan Mitchell. So please don't run that nonsense back at me. What I'm saying is this team was still operating at a high level during the regular season with Donovan Mitchell not on the floor. I think you really missed Mike Conley when he was out. Yeah. After that Minnesota back-to-back, you never really got Mike Conley back. I think you really missed his contribution. Now, that's compounded by the fact that you didn't have Donovan on the floor as well, so you were without Don and Conley. And I think it forced Joe Ingles to do things he was not prepared or physically capable of doing, which obviously impacts the team. But I think when you look at, most valuable player to this team, I think it's very difficult to say it's not Donovan Mitchell. The things that the guy does, I think he has to get better defensively. But he covers for a lot of mistakes. He covers for a lot of bad decisions. His range, as you were just talking about a moment ago, his ability to score at all levels. I mean, he's the most important player to this team. And I honestly, I think Rudy's probably the third most important player on this team. If we're going to rank guys, I think Don's 1, Conley's 2, and I think Rudy's 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I completely agree with that. But I want to say again, I think on the Rudy Gobert, is he able? Does he have? Let me put it this way: does Rudy Gobert have access to the NBA MVP conversation?
Well,
I don't know that he does. I think that he definitely, without a doubt, has the access to. Hey, you're one of the best players in the Western Conference. I think you can put him in that conversation for sure because of the effect he has.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because is Rudy Gobert one of the best players in the NBA? And let's quantify that a little bit. Is he a top 25 player in the NBA?
Yeah, I think you got to say yes because I think
Rudy Gobert is a top 25 player.
Here's why. I don't think he's on the top end of that list, but I do think he would be between 20 to 25. Yeah, because I think that the problem for Rudy, and this plays into the why I don't think he would be able to win an MVP. The impact that he has is sometimes not always so obvious. So like. There are definitely nights where I'm watching this team and I'm literally seeing teams scheme to work around his effectiveness around the rim when he's on the floor. Not to say they won't attack him, because they will attack him. But what I'm saying is that you're seeing teams work the ball on the perimeter more. You're seeing them go a different path than they traditionally would because you've got a guy in Rudy Gobert who is a juggernaut at the rim. And I think that impact to your average NBA fan, they're not going to see that stuff, with all due respect. You got to really watch the game to identify when that type of thing is happening, where like with LeBron, let's say, we get to see him in transition the other night with a crazy reverse dunk, and he's all over ESPN.
Yeah, man.
That's what I mean. That's why
there's
it's
a
tough.
lot that goes. It's not tough for me. He's not one of the top 25 players in the NBA in totality.
Mm-hmm.
I think whether we're talking about bigs, I mean, I'm certainly taking Jokic. I think I'm certainly taking Embiid, although Embiid's durability is always a question. But I'm taking Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he's
Karl
the best.
Anthony Towns?
I think that's close.
Okay.
I think Karl Anthony Towns is. The problem is, here are my issues with Rudy Gobert, and I think we've talked about this. I think Rudy's soft. I think Rudy is not somebody that scares people. I think he is not somebody that he's not universally intimidating. I think we saw Giannis the other night just straight up attack him in his chest.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've seen those guys go back and forth, and both Rudy and Giannis have won battles there. But he's not bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I think it's very difficult to attack Giannis defensively.
It is.
I think it's very difficult when you look at offensively. I just think that the development that we've seen in Giannis Antetokounmpo is glaringly not there with Rudy Gobert.
So, what would you be looking for?
The range, the ability to score at not at the rim.
Right.
And I think that Giannis was embarrassed. And Giannis has become a pretty damn good jump shooter. The three ball's going down. The mid-range is going down. The turnaround fadeaway falling off the baseline is going down.
Yeah.
And when I say going down, it's snapping. It's not rattling. It's snapping the bottom of the net. Giannis is growing as an offensive player. Now, to Rudy's credit, he's making a hell of a lot more free throws than he ever has before. But he just has not evolved as an offensive player. He's still... And we've talked about this, I know, ad nauseum, but he still cannot dribble the ball.
Mm-hmm.
He cannot put the ball on the floor and get to the hole, and I think that's an issue. But this is not to knock Rudy or say that Rudy's not a good player, because very clearly he is. What I'm saying is, to be an MVP candidate in this league, you got to be one of the elite players in the game.
I honestly think that all Rudy would need to really take a step forward in the MVP conversation would just be the ability to back a guy down. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be a baseline fade. None of that stuff. Like,
Yeah, I think he needs to be meaner. Rudy Gobert, there's this belief, and especially amongst Jazz fans, there's this belief that Rudy's a badass, that, you don't want to mess with that guy. Well, actually, you do want to mess with that guy, because I think Rudy has no answer. If you go dunk on him, what is he going to do? Well, he's going to catch a lob. But on his own, he can't do anything.
mm-hmm.
So Rudy Gobert is he's got that soft Euro guy in him.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see him, just go. I would love to see him take an off season and become something of an offensive threat. Because, again, and everybody in the comments I can already see is saying, that, hey, listen, he's having the best offensive year of his career because the Jazz are not shooting the three well. Can you expect Rudy to be 20 and 20 every night?
No, I mean, I don't think you can expect that when the Jazz have that night where they shoot 40% from three. But I also
think is pretty typical for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's where they. I mean, to be honest with you, that's where they need to be successful as a team. But so I think, and again, this is why I think the Rudy topic is so, dynamic, but also can get very negative in Jazz Nation. Because I think you can't just look at Rudy's numbers. He's one of those guys in the league, and there are many guys like this.
Yep.
Rudy's not alone, but there are many guys in the league where you can't just look at their numbers and be like, well, yeah, he's 20 and 20. That must mean he's an MVP candidate. But when you look at how the 20 and 20 games impact the Jazz, those are nights where they're either losing by a couple possessions or they're winning by one possession. Like, those are really tight games. But you notice the nights where Rudy has like 20. We even see him sometimes peak at like 25 boards in a game, but he only has like 10 to 13 points. It's in that range somewhere. Those are the nights where the Jazz dominate.
But here's the thing: if you're a Jazz fan, and this is the question, and this is the one that Jazz fans always want to argue and avoid, do you want Rudy Gobert to score 25, 30 points a night? And I'm telling you unequivocally, without a doubt, the answer is hell no. You do not. Because if Rudy's going to continue to score 17 to 20 points a night, this team will not progress through the playoffs. They won't. Because that means Don's continuing to be erratic. That means Clarkson's missing shots. That means, like the only guy this year who's been on auto is Joe Ingles. And my biggest concern with Joe Ingles is what's really changed with his workload? Not much. Because you're not seeing Trent Forrest, and we talked about Jared Butler on the show yesterday. Jared Butler is struggling right now. And you're not seeing him playing the minutes that everybody, really anticipated. And some of this is Quinn Snyder does not like playing young guys. And there's not many coaches in the NBA who do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like playing young guys. Quinn does not like playing young guys. Jared Butler needs minutes. He needs minutes. And I would tell you, if this struggle continues, I would send him down to the G League. And I would get him 30, 35-minute game. Like, let this guy play in the G League for 2 weeks, play a volume of minutes, get that swag back, and then come back. Because right now, he looks paralyzed a lot of times when he's going to shoot a basketball.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is, obviously, Joe Ingles cannot continue to play this kind of volume.
So
you cannot.
So to this point about, I agree, first of all, that Joe Ingles can't be playing that kind of volume and think that he's not going to get hurt. I mean, he's not an injury-prone guy.
Well, it's not even that he gets hurt, Jake. It's that his production, his efficiency goes way down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a negative impact on Joe Ingles when he plays too many minutes. I mean, we saw that last year. But I think to this whole, I was just looking at the box scores for the last two games, because the last two games are a perfect example of what we're talking about with Rudy's impact and how things affect him. So you look at the Bucks win. The Jazz win that game 107-95. Comfortable win, right? I mean, that's a good win. Yes, the Bucks were depleted, but still, it's the Bucks. That's a good win. You're on the road, like, good win. In that game, Rudy plays 31 minutes, 9 points, 13 boards, right? And you win the game. But then against the Bulls, they lose the game.
And the Bulls have no size.
Right. Well, they have one guy, but that's it, in Vucevic. But he's not anything special.
At all.
In that game, Rudy has 19 points and 17 boards, and you lose that game. So that's what we're talking about.
And the Jazz played terrible basketball against the Bulls.
So it's like
terrible.
To me, if Rudy is going to get to a place where he can be an MVP candidate, I feel like all he would, because think about it, all he really needs to be able to do is say, hey, I'm on the block, give me the ball, and let me go through my guy.
Well, this is your Don point, though, isn't it?
It is. Don will not give him the ball. And it's kind of crazy, too, because like in the Bulls game and in the Milwaukee game, Rudy comes up, and this is one of the things he's best at.
Did you say Milwaukee?
Yeah, Milwaukee. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Milwaukee. My bad. Go ahead.
In Milwaukee, Rudy comes up many times a game and sets great picks. That's one of the things he's really good at. His screen setting is excellent. And then he rolls off of that, but Don won't give him the ball, even though the Bucks in like the one instance were playing basically like that hybrid zone scheme we always talk about.
Right.
And Rudy's just standing in the paint and he can't get the ball. So I'm not saying that Don has trust issues with Rudy, but what I'm saying is that his teammates aren't looking for him like that on the offensive end. They're looking for a pick, and that's it.
That's true. I agree. Let's get some comments in here. Good morning to everybody. Appreciate you. Chris Karn, what's up? How's the Traeger, man?
How's the Traeger, bro?
Did you build it yet? Are you cooking on it? By the way.
Mm-hmm.
By the way.
Yeah.
Huge breaking news on the show.
Oh, boy.
Gabe Ledley is now in the Smoker clan.
Did he buy a Traeger?
He was gifted, hand-me-down, a Green Mountain Grill.
Wow.
So, Gabe, let's go, man. Let's go. Time to get on Amazon, get your seasoning game in order. Understand that if you're going to put something on the smoker, you got to season it and let it ferment overnight with those spices. Let it open up. Yeah, there's a not much of an art, but there's some things you need to do. Let's go. Gabe Ledley, Lopes fan Gabe, is now in the Smoker clan, and I love it.
Let's go,
I'm telling you, growing the smoker community one Traeger Green Mountain Grill at a time.
Let's go.
Let's go. Love it. So, Chris, hope you're well, buddy. The Blind Swordsman DS says, we're all wrong about Rudy Gobert. He's going to come back to earth. Donovan is the only one that could happen on this team to win an MVP, I think is what he means.
Yeah, that's what he means, yeah.
Daner says, good morning. Dane, what's up? Good to see you. Spencer Morgan, hey, what's up, Spence? Right now, Conley is the Jazz MVP. I think there's a big conversation on that.
See, but again, I fall back to what does the MVP mean? Because you say that it means the most important player to your team.
I would agree. And in the comments, I mean, Spencer, I think you're probably one of the most knowledgeable fans we have on this show. Spencer and everybody else, what does the MVP mean to you? Is it, to me, it's who's the most valuable player to their team? If you take that guy off their team, they have no chance to be their best, or, however you want to define that. To me, the MVP is the best player on their team, that if I take that guy off that team, they're cooked. It's over. To me, that is, again, I view regular season and the playoffs differently. I think in the playoffs, that's Donovan Mitchell. We saw how much they struggled once the medical staff, who at the end of the day, by the way, turned out to be correct about his ankle, once they were proven right and he re-injured that ankle, the Jazz never had a chance to win games.
Yeah.
Never. Without Mike Conley in the playoffs, I think the Jazz were more than competitive with the Clippers. As soon as Don started limping around, any chance they had to defend the Clippers went away. And I think, by the way, the Clippers were just a better team, especially without Mike Conley and a healthy Don.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there you go. I think it's Donovan Mitchell. Is there MVP?
I agree. Yeah.
The Night Guy says when Conley sits, the offense lags. Mitchell tries hero too much.
I agree.
And
with that.
Joe is slow. Hero ball's a real problem for Donovan Mitchell. I would agree with that. Eric C, what's up? Bummer for your Aztecs. Night Guy, maybe by the end of the season, Butler or Forrest will pick up Conley's minutes and be serviceable. The guy is Trent Forrest. I mean, what we saw this offseason in his growth, I think was so significant. What we saw his capabilities in the preseason and summer league, well, you have to discount that because it's the preseason and the summer league.
Yeah.
His explosiveness, his understanding, his basketball IQ took a huge jump, right? And a lot of times that happens because you grow confidence. But Trent Forrest is a guy, I still maintain that I would take Trent Forrest over Royce O'Neal every night. But Trent Forrest isn't going to play a whole lot. That's very clear. And Jared Butler is not going to develop sitting on the bench. I think that's very clear. The Nye guy says, I agree. Spencer, Joe needs to play a second unit. Where is Spencer's comment? There it is. Bunch of filtered comments already today, friends. It's not a good sign that Snyder played Jingles, Spencer says, for a ton of minutes versus the Bulls to back up Conley, and Butler only played 3 minutes. Joe is already getting gassed early in the season. That was my point earlier. Like, I'm really worried about that. Like, am I the only one that's surprised that Jared Butler just has not been able to compete at this level yet?
Yeah, I think that it just kind of goes to show you how, the talent gap and the ability gap between your average NBA regular season starting five and a starting five in the summer league. And I think that Jared was a dominant player in the summer league. I think he's better. Right now he's a 4A guy, as I like to say. He's a 4A baseball player, right? What that means is that he's way better than guys in summer league, but he's not quite ready to play regular NBA contributors. And that's the tough part. And I think that, the good news about the whole thing is that, you've got a guy in Jared Butler who's learning from Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. So whatever your thoughts are on those two guys, we can both and all agree that those guys have a plethora of knowledge to help and develop him. And so, I think it's what are we? What's tonight? Game 7.
6?
They're 5-1. Game 7, I think.
Game 7. Yeah.
Game 7.
Okay, there you go.
So he's 7 games into his NBA career. I mean, where is this kid going to be? When we get to game 40 or 50.
But I think Jared Butler specifically needs minutes, and you're not going to get minutes on this team. If you're not going to play him on the nights that Mike Conley is resting, when are you going to play him? He needs, right now, I would love to see him getting 12, 15 minutes a night. That's not happening because he just can't compete right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to get better is to get more minutes, and I would be okay with a G League assignment for a couple of weeks for Jared Butler. I think you've got to get him minutes because, again, for better or for worse, and again, Quinn's my guy, but he's not going to play young guys. He just isn't. SLCP Shooter, what's up? Good to see you. He says, so you're saying it's a problem that Rudy goes 20 and 20 on a night when the Jazz are cold and need it? No, I'm not saying that it's a problem. What I'm saying is the Jazz are not playing their best basketball if Rudy's going 20 and 20.
Yeah, because think about it. This is what I was saying earlier. This is the point I was making. You can't just say, well, Rudy's 20 and 20. How is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
You have to go a level deeper than what his stats are. You have to look at, okay, what has to take place for Rudy to get to 20 and 20. And the issue is that for him to get to 20 and 20, the Jazz got to shoot like 33% from 3, and then he's on cleanup duty.
That's right.
So it's not a criticism of Rudy, but what we're saying is that, think of it this way. If his 20 and 20 were, hey, the Jazz are not shooting the 3 well, let's stop shooting 3s because we're cold tonight, and let's feed the offense through Rudy on the block. Okay, we're having a different conversation now because the offense is running physically through Rudy. But when his 20 points come from missed 3-point opportunities, that's not good news for this Jazz team because they live and die on the 3. That's the problem. That's why I use that example of the Bulls and the Bucks game, because in the Bulls game, you don't shoot well, you don't play well as a team, and he has a big night. He's a 20 and 20 kind of night. I think he was 19 and 17. He had a big night. But then against the Bucks, he's got 9 points, and I think it was like 16 boards because they shot the 3 well. So that's why I'm saying go past the stat sheet a little bit and look what takes place or what has to take place for him to be successful. That's really what you have to do with Rudy to understand him.
And again, I would just remind you on one of his best games of the year where he scores 17 points to give you 19 boards, 7 of those 19 were offensive rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
On a night where the Jazz, Don was 2 of 11 against the Bulls. I mean,
what were they as a team, though? Look at what were they as a team from
terrible, 28.9%, 11 of 38.
So 11 of 38.
And by the way, 20 turnovers.
Dude,
that's a lot. I mean, it's so anyway, my point is, I'm not complaining that Rudy goes 20 and 20. I'm just telling you, if you're a Jazz fan, that the way he currently is constructed offensively, you don't want him going 20 and 20. I mean, you don't. This team wins, the Utah Jazz win when they shoot the 3 well.
And the other problem is too, like with and again, to keep bringing it back to the MVP conversation, the other problem is, like I was saying, Rudy's contribution defensively sometimes can't be measured. Like, how do you measure when the offense identifies that he's standing there at the block and they kick it out and then they take a three? Well, you can't really measure that, but that's a big effect. I mean, if they kick it out and they miss that three, he's essentially just saved you a bucket. Like that's why what I mean about like this whole MVP conversation with Rudy, that's why I think it's difficult for a guy like Rudy to get into the conversation because it's not as easy as it is for LeBron or Giannis. Oh, LeBron's got 35 and 17 tonight. By the way, did you see that reverse dunk? It's all over SportsCenter. Rudy's not getting on SportsCenter. He's not. Like that's not happening for him.
Rectangle with the WR with the number 3 again.
Okay,
the rectangle.
Right.
Says if the Jazz have to go without Rudy for an extended period of time, their defense would be horrible at best. Well, I think their defense is pretty mediocre. So I agree with you. I mean, if Rudy's not on the floor, their defense takes a step back. Even with Hassan.
You saw the bowl stats? You saw the bowl
I do.
Stats
Even
up?
with Hassan on the floor, he's not nearly the defender that Rudy is.
So what for the Bulls? What did they shoot from the field? Not 3-point, but from the field.
In totality, they shot 42%, 39 of 91. 24% from 3.
So wait, but I don't want to skip over that. This is what I'm getting at here. In the Bulls game, you turned it over 20 times. You gave them 20 extra possessions.
And they only turned it over 9 times.
They shot horribly from 3, 24% from 3. So what does that mean then? That means that they got all their production inside the arc, a lot in the paint, and that's why I'm saying when the Jazz aren't shooting the 3 well, it leads to a Rudy cleanup or it leads to a lot of transition basketball because you're getting big rebounds.
The Bulls scored 107 points, 54 of which were scored in the paint. So half of their points came in the paint.
But again, that's not. I don't want people to take that as us saying, "Hey, Rudy sucks" or "He's not playing good defense." What I'm saying is that Rudy can't be the end-all, be-all on defense. He does a lot of great things for you. There's a reason he's a Defensive Player of the Year guy every single year for what seems like forever now, right? But what I'm saying is that team defense is not good on this team right now, and it is a problem.
20 turnovers for 25 points.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Think about
and by
that.
the way, the Bulls had 13 fast break points. Jazz had 8, so the Jazz weren't out running.
20 turnovers and 13 in transition.
They were almost dead even on fouls. Rudy got that technical foul in the corner.
Don got a technical intentionally.
I mean, I just don't understand. Yeah. Anyway. The point is.
Yeah.
Let's read more comments. The Nye Guy says if Rudy's going off, Clarkson and Donovan are not. Truth.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bolton, the Bulls have Alex Caruso, though. So if you're going to crown them, then crown their ass, said Dennis Green. He's not going to get off the Caruso thing.
It's fine, dude. It's fine. Don't get off the Caruso thing. I'm just telling you, he's really good.
Yeah, and I would also say every team would want Alex Caruso, which is why he was in demand. Eric C. says, sprinkle a little razzle-dazzle. He wants his razzle-dazzle.
Okay, hey, let me
hello?
All right.
Razzle-dazzle! Rack attack. The Nye Guy says, dudes, I needed that bag alert more than I realized. Brian Clegg. Hey, Brian, what's up, man? He says he's got to find the balance between hero ball and distributor. Don does. Because the other thing I wish Don would do is when he gets into the paint on the dribble drive, there's nothing wrong with passing the basketball. He takes a lot of damage down there. And there are times where I would love to see him either drop it to Rudy or kick to the corner for a 3. He doesn't always have to go up when he's in the paint. And I think there's a lot more than taking 87-foot 3-point shots to hero ball.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep an eye on. Eric C. says, really hope the Jazz don't Elijah Hughes Jarrett Butler. Well,
they have so far, and I'm with you.
With that.
I mean, he needs Jared Butler is at a point where he just needs time on the floor. I agree with you. He needs a 10 to 15 minute a night run on the floor, and if you do that, by the time the season ends, you're gonna have a quality bench guy. Yeah.
The Nye Guy says, and the difference between the Bulls game and the Bucks game, Mike Conley. Well, and you also didn't have Brooke Lopez. You didn't have Chris Middleton, one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
Like the Bucks were without 4 of their best players.
Yeah, but I agree. You're not wrong. I mean, the Mike Conley effect is real for this team.
Thanapolis, Thani,
His
Mama,
name is Thanasis. He is a distant
Takapupo,
cousin of Thanos, please.
Tampanupo.
I'm Shiva, the god of death.
Yeah, Thanos, Giannapolis and stuff. Giro guy. Tzatziki sauce. Should not be starting for any team in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like Thanos is a G League player and stuff. I'll stop.